Happy Friday and welcome back, peeps. You think chronic illness is just about doctor's appointments and symptoms? Think again, because we're getting ready to tear down the polite facade of disability, okay? Today we sit down with the self-proclaimed chronic illness baddie. We're talking to the voice behind one of the fiercest online advocacy movements, a person who lost her career, lost her health, and is now boldly speaking out to make the invisible visible. She's tired of being quiet. She's tired of being polite. Her story is a real, hardcore look at the emotional toll of the silent struggle, the profound grief of losing who you were, and the exhausting fight for validation when your pain is invisible. If you've ever been told you don't look sick, then this episode right here is for you. Get ready for the raw, uncompromising conversation about identity, grief, and the fight to be validated. Go ahead, grab a seat, buckle in, and let's get ready to keep it real. I'm Mr. Cool Beans, and this is the Chronic Brew.
You are now tuned into the Chronic Brew podcast with Mr. Cool Beans, sharing stories, inspiring others.
Welcome back to the show. Today, we're diving into a story that is super profound and has so much change, unexpected grief, and the fierce strength it takes to advocate for your own existence. Our guest, Jessie Myers, spent years quietly managing a chronic illness, but recently reached a tipping point, a moment where her body said no more, forcing her into a life she never planned for. Jessie joins us to talk about the emotionally devastating loss of her professional identity, the struggle for validation from both doctors and loved ones when her illness is largely invisible, and how she found a powerful new purpose in sharing her story. If you or someone you love is navigating the complex world of chronic illness, new disabilities, and the fight to be believed, you need to hear this one. Please welcome the incredibly resilient Jessie Myers. Jessie, welcome to the Chronic Brew.
Thank you for having me.
Look, man, I am so thankful every single time I get to sit down with someone who truly tries to advocate for their people who have the chronic illness that they share. Because I feel like there's a whole perspective that they can bring to the table. You know, as with me, I have CKD. Why don't you tell the people what chronic illnesses do you have?
So it's been a question for years, honestly. So when it first started, it was stated to be benign positional vertigo and migraines. So we tried treating it that way. That wasn't going well. Then I eventually got the diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which I dealt with for about 10 years. And then things have just gotten worse, as you said, in the past year, which
Hmm.
kind of forced them to look at other things. Cause I'm like, this is not just fibro. There is 100% something else going on. And I just recently got diagnosed with POTS.
All right, so that's
Mhm.
that. I'm counting, and I'm counting like four different chronic illnesses happening
Oh, that's not
simultaneously.
even all of them. There's more.
Oh, okay, all right. So there's an
There's
there's
more. I also
okay.
have Raynaud's syndrome. It's questionable if I have Ehlers-Danlos. And I also struggle with mental health conditions as well.
Mental health, and I'm assuming that's attributed from all the stuff that you're definitely going through, right?
I mean, there's other stuff where that comes from. I had kind of a rough childhood, but and this is definitely added to it. There's no doubt about
Uh,
it.
yeah, you know. Oh man. Okay. All right. So I guess my next question, based off of that, um, can you tell us what are some of the symptoms? What are some of the symptoms that you feel on a day to day basis?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, that's changed over the years. So for as long as I can remember, even when I was a little girl,
Hmm.
I was really intolerant to excessive heat, and I was intolerant to excessive exercise. So, like, here I am, 9 years old, running laps in gym class, and next thing I know, I'm in the nurse's office because I feel like I'm going to pass out.
Hmm.
And that happened to me all the time. And it was always dismissed like, oh, you're just dehydrated or you're just anxious or whatever it may be.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then over the years, it got worse. So, like in my late teens, early 20s, it was really bad where I had several ER visits because I was having full blackouts, especially in the heat. I was having days where I was just exhausted and couldn't explain it. Over the years, I had ER visits because I'd wake up unable to move, like my muscles were like seized almost. I don't even know how to explain it.
Oh
Um,
man, like
and every
like super frozen
time,
up.
yeah, yeah. And every time they'd be like, "Oh, you're dehydrated. Oh, it's this. Oh, did you sleep enough? Oh," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, this is crazy." So over the years, with my jobs and stuff, I've known like, okay, I have bad days, right? Sometimes I'll have a flare up, and if I get hit with a cold, it's going to be 100 times worse than the average person. Like, I know that.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
but I was able to manage. I was able to keep a job. It was no problem until this past spring. Well, actually more than that. I'd say last February I started having to cut back my hours a lot at work. I was working as a preschool teacher. And
Ah,
I
I
yeah.
get it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Coming from the teacher cloth as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so like very, very physical job, right? Very physical, very demanding in every way, shape, and form.
Right.
Loved it though, loved it. But I had to keep cutting back my hours because I was getting sick and I'd get home and I'd collapse on the couch. I'd look at my husband and I'd be like, dude, I can't. Like, I have nothing left in me. Like, please don't ask me to do a dang thing. And it was getting worse. And so I went to the doctor and I was like, I don't think this is just fibro. And if it is, like, I need to know, why is it getting worse? What's going on here? So the doctor called for blood work. Over the weekend, it progressed. So I had a migraine
Okay.
and I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, still had the migraines. I was like, oh man, all right, I guess I'm going to sleep some more. So I went back to sleep. When I woke up, I couldn't move.
Oh,
I couldn't lift my hand up to my face. I could barely talk. I was slurring. It took two people to pick me up and take me to the bathroom. I mean, I was useless.
that's almost like stroke symptoms, almost, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. Well, that's what we were questioning almost. We're like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
So then I go back to the doctor and I'm collapsed on her table and she is like, "Oh, well, from what I see, your blood work looks normal and, you do have fibro and your blood pressure's fine, so I don't think it's anything else, so I can't refer you to anybody." And
Mm,
I'm like, "You're joking, right?" And I'm like, "Lady, like, do you see me right now? Like, I was not like this a week ago. Like, what are you talking about?"
right.
And my husband and I were like asking different things. Well, could it have to do with her vitamin deficiencies? Could it be this? Could it be that? And she's just like, no, 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 very dismissive, refused to refer me to anybody. Um, so then I was like, oh, okay, well, I have to leave work because I certainly can't work in this condition. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah,
So
it's
that
super
that was
taxing at the job.
devastating,
Hmm.
absolutely devastating. So it's just been it's been a long recovery process this summer.
Gosh. So my initially when you mentioned how like it started off as like when you were a kid,
Yeah.
just going through that as a 9-year old, continuous ER visits, going to the doctors a lot and all that. Um, I guess my next question: how was it navigating this chronic illness as a child in the sense of like you know?
Non-existent. Non-existent. I'm going to tell you why right now. I had a sister who's autistic, okay? So her
Mhm.
needs outranked mine. Also, I grew up in a really small town in New Hampshire and I grew up dirt poor and I had neglectful parents. So guess what? There was no exploring. It just was.
Oh,
There was
okay.
no exploring. It didn't exist. No. Going to the ER didn't happen until I was a teenager and in my 20s and able to take myself.
Wait, so when you were in pain, when you were like going through the motions and you were, I'm assuming crying for sure. Like, what was that like as far as support from your family?
I mean, my dad wasn't around much in my childhood. My mom, she was good about taking care of me when I didn't feel good. But I mean, again, there was never really like looking into it to see what's going on here.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So like maybe it was just for the lack of better terms, like a sense of mm, like ignorance, but like not knowing for sure what was really going on. Maybe it was just
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it wasn't enough to affect our daily lives, you know what I
mhm,
mean? And
right,
plus, we were poor. We had other struggles. Like that was
yeah,
not on the table.
okay,
Like you don't look into stuff like that when you don't have money. You just don't.
Yeah, because I think off the rip, you're thinking about like the cost of things. You're thinking that, well, if it's
Oh,
something serious,
100%. There was one time I had a fever and I remember I was sick as a dog. I was throwing up so bad. I was so sick. I had a fever like 105 or something crazy. And I very distinctly remember the conversation. My parents were arguing. My mom wanted to take me to the hospital, but my dad refused because he didn't want the bill. So I never went.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that was my childhood, man.
Oh,
It was rough.
I just kind of think back to my kid. I'm thinking like, all right, well, if he's sick, there's no cost that I wouldn't mind running into just to make sure that
Yeah,
he's all right.
no. I was never valued that way in my family. So like everything has a price tag and everything is inconvenient. So like I got forgotten.
What was your mind like? Your mind. I'm thinking, where did your mind go as a 9-year old? Feeling like you're not necessarily getting all of the care that you typically need, or maybe even like the need to get to the hospital. That piece being 100% on board with your folks. Like, where did your mind go then?
Then I didn't know any better. I was a kid. I was so trained by my parents that I was more concerned about the money in their pocket than myself.
I can sympathize with that in a sense because like, you're a kid, you want to make sure mom and dad is good, like you want to make sure like everything stays afloat and if it needs be that, what I'm going through is taking a look. Secondly, let's keep everything in place before we dive in and I ruin everything. I think there's a guilt piece there to it too, right?
Oh,
But
100%. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because what I'm imagining is like I don't want to be the one to make everything go south because of what I'm going through. So I'm gonna keep it hush and just
Yes, yes. And it was expected of me too, especially given that my sister was autistic and unable to regulate her own emotions. It was on me. So if I started getting upset because she ripped a doll out of my hands,
mm,
Jesse, you're expected to buck up and not cry because you
oh,
don't want to set off your sister.
wow.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, just was your sister getting the support that she needed as well? Was she getting supports?
Um, I will say that my mother did the best she could to fight for the supports that were needed, but in the state of New Hampshire, there is not a whole lot to offer. And when you don't have money, it makes it even worse. So honestly, I mean, I don't know. I don't
Wow.
know.
And that's why it's so important. Like I tell everybody who has well, I don't tell everyone who has a chronic illness, but almost encourage everyone who has a chronic illness to get on board with advocacy because a lot of the states, a lot of the counties even they don't have systems in place that helps to support folks with chronic
No.
illnesses. And I
No.
feel like when a lot of voices kind of come together and share what they're going through to make a change happen out of it, I feel like advocacy is the best route to make those changes happen. That's why you have a lot of folks like on my end who are on the National Kidney Foundation, or the American Kidney Fund. They're bringing awareness. They're joining these organizations that help fight for them on the congressional level. Not to get super political and all that stuff, but you know what I mean. There's a level of advocacy that helps promote change, so we can have supports for people who go through a chronic illness, man. And I wish you had that as a young age too. Oh my gosh, that to me that's traumatizing, yo.
Well, the thing is, like, and like to piggyback what you're saying, nothing changes unless people do speak up, right? And
Right.
so, like, for me, the only reason why I am where I am in my medical journey is because I got out of New Hampshire and sought care in a different state. I had
Okay.
to. So, like, I was thankful enough that I was able to do that. But I know a lot of people here who can't do that. A lot of people who don't drive, a lot of people who don't have money, a lot of people who don't have the insurance, whatever it may be. So they're stuck here with these crappy doctors who aren't willing to help.
Crappy doctors. Hey, that's there's gonna be an episode where I kind of talk about that piece in particular, for sure. But I hear you though. I think a lot of people are okay with comfortability, and sometimes comfortability kills. It kills you faster than if you would to just take the risk and go somewhere else to seek the help that you need. So I'm super thankful that you got up and did what you needed to do for you, because Lord knows what would have happened if you just stuck around and kind of let things play out. You know what I mean?
I mean, I kind of already found out, you know what I mean? Like, I know with my condition, the way it has progressed because I was unaware. All these times that I went to the doctors and I was overlooked, I could have taken action to help manage my illness.
Right.
But
Right.
because I was neglected for so long, it did cause damage. Now I'm disabled, you know? So I did get the short end of the stick here.
Oh, I think a lot of the not knowing part, it definitely plays a part with the like you said, crappy doctors at times, because they'll see something and they'll just write it off as, that's nothing, no need to worry about it now. Or and then it only gets worse, and then you realize that you're in a position where there's no cure, there's nothing that you can do about it. Like,
Right.
take me for example, I had, something called malignant hypertension, and it's probably attributed because I went to college, I had some bad eating habits, I probably didn't work out as much, but then when I started to, it was too late because the blood pressure just would not go down for no reason, and it damaged my kidneys, and here I am with CKD.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely awareness is everything, advocating for yourself is everything. But man, big ups to you. I mean, navigating that childhood, some folks, they don't see that side of the chronic illness spectrum. They don't. So
No, but there are so many studies out there linking trauma and being stuck in like fight or flight mode and how it will develop into autoimmune diseases and other things. It messes with your nervous system. And so I'm not surprised I'm sick. I'm not surprised.
right.
I'm mad about it, but I'm not surprised.
Absolutely, I'd be, well, I am. I'm still livid, but
Right?
yeah.
For real. For real.
Oh, okay. So, and to piggyback off of what you just said, stress is the mother of all illnesses. Fight or flight. If you're constantly in that phase, you just don't know. You can stress yourself to a chronic illness. I think it's always good to be gentle with yourself. But what do you do? What do you do in the moments where, wherever you look around, there's no peace? You know what I'm saying? That is a big one there. But yes, Jesse, again, thank you for chopping it up with me today. I know we talked about the origin story about when your chronic illness kind of came into play, and you navigated through high school with all of that. You went into the teaching career, and what was that like when you realized when you just could not continue your career option anymore? This had to stop immediately.
Yeah, heartbreaking. I cried for days. I did.
Mm,
I cried for days. Because I had gone back to teaching after taking a break from it. I went to social work for a while, right?
okay.
And that burnt me out. That was very emotionally exhausting. So I was like, I got to go back to teaching,
Right.
and I was a little concerned about my physical health with teaching because, I knew that I had flare ups once in a while. I just didn't know it was going to get to this level. So yeah, I mean, it definitely was and still is a grieving process and fear, I guess, in the sense of like I was determined, like, yep, I'm going down this teaching path again. I'm going to do the things I need to do to make sure my resume looks good, da 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 da, whatever, get my credentials. And then, I loved the place I worked, and I was doing everything I could to take on more responsibility and be present there. And it was just a slap in the face, like just that real the real reality of like you don't have control. Like you
Mhm.
can do anything you want and you can line up your ducks however you want, but you do not have control.
You
And
don't.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I know for me, I definitely try to tie my identity with my career.
Mm.
Wherever I went, like, hey, what do you do? Well, I'm a fourth grade math and science teacher. I teach robotics and like, all that jazz. And it kind of, I'm not gonna say like I didn't have my own personal identity outside of my work, but I think I did pride myself on what I did.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. And I was thinking about that a little bit and like because I know for me it was so important to be like, oh yeah, I'm a social worker and I'm working on my master's and oh yeah, I have my bachelor's and da 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 da. Like that was so important to me. And I think it's because even as a kid, I always strived to be like the A student, the on the honor roll. And it was, I think it was the need to be seen, because I was so neglected by my own family and not seen or supported the way that I needed, that I had become an overachiever, and that definitely presented itself at work to a point where it was almost problematic. It was burning me out.
Whoa. Okay. Follow up question on that.
Absolutely.
So with all of that being said, because I'm seeing a lot of parallels going on here. When you finally looked yourself in the mirror, considering what your career meant to you, um, what does that grief of losing that professional identity feel like in your everyday life now?
So now it's better, because I've kind of shifted gears with the art and stuff, right? But at first, I really, with losing that identity of my career, I felt I lost a sense of self,
Hmm.
like a huge sense of self. I think I felt defeated, how long it took me to get my degree and how much work I put into it, and just feeling like no matter what I did, I kept falling on my face. So defeat was huge. Yeah, that was probably the biggest feeling. But it has helped me slow down and figure out, okay, Jesse, what really feeds your soul? What are other talents that you have where you're not draining yourself and giving to other people? What's something you can do a little different? And that's kind of where the art has come up for me.
Before we get into the art,
Yeah.
you're not seeing this, but as you're talking, I'm like shaking my head. I'm like pounding my fist to my forehead because it sounds like you're me in a parallel universe. Okay,
That's wild.
like no, because you hit something there. Like it took years for us to reach the place that we consider our pinnacle, right? Because like if we think about our backgrounds, I am from Miami, Florida. Let's say, I didn't start off as the most greatest individual on the planet. Matter of fact, if depending on who you ask, I might not be so nice, right? But then there's that change, that evolution that takes place where you kind of take life seriously, and then you pursue certain things that others probably aren't at the moment, right? And you build and you build and you kind of create your empire, if you will. And I always describe chronic illness like, someone tying you up, and it's a slow fire to everything that you put in place. And it's like,
Mm,
this look at the works of my hand. Like I've done all of this, but then like you said, we are not in control of none of this. It's not our fault. It's not like we set the fire. It's just our bodies have taken on malignant state, and this just wants to attack everything that we do. So like I'm hearing you talk, and I'm just like, this is everything. I I literally just my yeah, and that identity, losing that identity, being a civilian now, being a patient now, not
yes,
walk.
being on the other side of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I likened my chronic, and I think chronic illness in general. I likened it to like you walking down the street and someone threw a membership jacket on you and say, "Here, now you wear it," and you look at it. It's like I don't
Yeah.
want to wear this, and like, well, too late, and they
Take
take
it
off, and
back. Take it
yeah.
back.
But then your eyes open up to a whole different reality, right? Like you see what others don't. Like for me, the shocker was walking into my transplant institute and seeing a 7-year old on a dialysis machine.
Oh, wow.
7, and I'm like, I'm 36. Like you're only 7.
Yeah,
I don't know what the
yeah.
fight for you is like at this age. So I oh that shift in identities, man. It's truly humbling, but at the same time, it's eye opening, and then the grieving parts, they're so real, and people don't understand that, man. They don't.
No, I mean, there's that part too. There's a whole nother level to it too if you have to use mobility aids. Oh my goodness. When I go out in public with, I mean, first of all, because I'm only 37 and I look young, like people are staring at me if I'm using a cane, right? It's like super fun. Great. Yeah, stare at me. This is fun.
Oh boy.
But when I'm in a wheelchair, yo, people do not care. I have literally had people fall into my lap because they're just trying so hard to get around me. Like people,
Mm.
it's devastating. And then like, when I'm in a wheelchair, I have to use an elevator. Well, guess what? Some places make it really difficult to use the elevator, or you feel like you're risking your life getting on that elevator because it looks so janky, like it.
Yeah, the lights flicker and stuff.
Yeah. You're like, oh, okay, well, I guess my life ends today. It's been nice.
But you know what? You know, with everything that you're mentioning, like, can you imagine that maybe if we probably didn't have these chronic illnesses, we would probably be on that other side, probably falling over people with the wheelchairs, not being nice. You know,
Well, that's the part that frustrates me though, because I can say proudly that I wasn't that person. I have,
good,
because I
awesome,
grew up with a sister who was autistic, I've always been hyper aware of people with disabilities of all natures.
nice,
Okay.
nice.
So I've always been the person to be like, oh, please, you first. Oh my gosh, let me get the door for you. Do you need help with your groceries? I've always been that person. So it was almost a slap in the face when I didn't have that karma in return. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Mm.
yo, people are jerks for real. Like, I
Oh,
used
big
to be
time,
the nice guy. Like, what was I nice for? That was a
big time.
waste.
You
you
know,
know?
I remember when I came back from my when my kidney ruptured, you know, I had to use a cane because like for about 2 weeks I just could not walk. And so they were forcing me to walk at the hospital to get my oxygen up and I had to use a cane. And I remember leaving the hospital, you know, going to I don't know if you're familiar with Publix. That's big here in Florida. We have pub it's a big grocery store, it's fancy. They have pub subs. Google it. um
We do not have that in New Hampshire. I can tell you
Oh,
that right
it's
now.
it's a whole Super Bowl, okay? So you know, I remember using a cane going there, and I felt so ashamed. Like I felt like I
Mm,
should not be using this right now. I'm too young, you
yes.
know. And people were looking at me. I remember I had to use one of those sit down carts to shop.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, and this is the first time I'm admitting this. There are times where, you know, I would go to the grocery store and I would see folks using that. And then I would do like a quick assessment. And I'm like, I'm sure you can walk. I'm sure you can do that. Leave
Yes.
that for somebody who really needs it. And I'm
Yes.
judging them, not knowing that one day I would be using that. And now I get
Yes.
it. I get it. You know,
Yes.
I think for me that was a big eye opener because it created an advocate in me. Now when I see someone on those shopping cart chairs, you know, I'm just like, you know what? They probably have something going on that I don't see. You know, that invisible illness. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And there is fear around that because, like, when I go to the grocery store and if it's a day I have to use one of those carts, like, I'm capable of standing up and reaching for something on the shelf, right? I am.
Right.
But I'm afraid to do it because I know someone's going to look at me and be like, ugh, she's using a cart and doesn't even need it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's not true. I cannot walk around the perimeter of this store. Yes, I can stand up and grab a loaf of bread, but I can't do much more than that. Like, and you do feel like you're in a position where you almost have to explain yourself.
Right. And that's not fair because you should never try to justify the reality that you navigate every single
But
day and people
but
don't.
then here's the other side of it, which is equally as annoying. There was one day I was at the grocery store and I was in my wheelchair that day and I was fine. I was minding my own business. I was looking at the sushi. I was like, "Ooh, this looks good. Okay, I'm trying to pick out the
Hey.
one I want." I wasn't looking around indicating I needed help or anything. And this guy comes up in and he like literally had to get my attention. And he's like, "Do you need help, ma'am?" And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, why are
Ah.
you here?
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that either. Like the
Mm.
over accommodation. I didn't ask for your help. Like, go away.
You know, it's that fine line, man. You know, it's that fine line. You know, and I think people should always respect those boundaries for sure. But you know, if I don't ask, you know, don't. But then how will they know if you don't ask too? You know. Um,
Well, and that's just it. And I know some people are too afraid to ask. I'm not. Like, I am not afraid to speak up at all. And, I get that. But it's like, listen, I know you're trying to be nice, but don't go out of your way to try to do it because that just makes it awkward for everybody, okay?
I love it. All right. Oh, okay. So you did talk about being fearful of certain things. I guess my next question for you is like if you had to name like the most painful emotional shift when you went from struggling, just struggling to officially disabled. Like what was it? Was it the loss of control? Was it the shame? Was it the fear?
Wow.
Yeah, what was the most painful emotional shift?
Okay. Hmm. I think it was guilt was the biggest thing, mostly because I got drastically sick right after my husband and I got married.
Oh my
So,
gosh, yeah.
yeah, like immediately after. So there was this rush of guilt of like feeling like, oh man, this guy got duped because now he's got a sick wife, or now, I used to be very active with the income in the house, and now he has to do everything, and physically he has to do more. And, so there was a lot of guilt eating me alive and making me feel like an absolute burden.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I mean, I still struggle with that sometimes. It's gotten better, but yeah, the feeling of being a burden, especially, I mean, going back to the way I grew up, I was taught that if I needed something, I was a burden, right? So, like, this is very
wow.
difficult for me to have to let go of that control.
Wow. I just don't understand how you're literally walking in the life that I that I have right now, right, with all of this. Like the emotional steps of the grief is guilt is interesting. Um because usually a lot of people don't go there. They're scared, they have, I guess shame would tie into that for sure, but that guilt, I definitely felt that. You
Mm,
know, considering like, it wasn't right after we got married. I would say a good 7, 8 years in, this CKD came in, and I guess for me, I was just thinking about, oh my gosh, I was the main breadwinner. Yeah, I mean, my wife, she
yeah,
worked, but a lot of my checks, they did everything. And so now that doctors were saying, yeah, man, with your kidneys, you got to completely pivot. You can't go back to that job. I think for me, what happened was just feeling like I never wanted to be the burden. I agree with
right,
that. I never
right.
wanted to be the burden. The way my mom and dad raised me, it was just more like, don't ask for anything. You make it happen. Don't seem
Yeah,
like you're begging for charity or anything like that.
yes,
And so for me, that was really tough. And
yes,
I think one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn was that I have a partner for a reason. Now, did I want to give my partner a lot of that load? Absolutely not. I care
right,
for that person
right.
too much. And even, and not to bring in, male, female or anything, but as a guy, I think there's a sense of standard that I kind of had for myself.
Oh
Um,
yeah, of
you know
course.
what I
Men
mean? Like,
men assume they're the protectors and the providers.
yeah, we're big on stoicism. We're big. We,
Yeah.
we want to be we're that guy. Bread and butter, we got that, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
so when for me, just to see myself at my lowest point and see, my wife make the shift where she was now elevated to that point where she's the caregiver, she's making sure I'm recovering, she's making sure doctor's appointments are lined up. I'm like, yo, like this is it's almost unfair, how life
Yeah.
kind of brought everything.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, my husband he already has been the one to kind of, I feel, do more. Like, he's the one that cooks. I don't cook. He's the one that goes to the grocery store, like when it comes to managing all the finances and stuff, he's in charge of that. When it comes to planning trips, all I have to do is get my butt in the car. Like, he takes care of me. And so for me to get to this point being disabled where I feel like I give so little back, it's hard. So I try to give back however I can, whenever I can, but it just nags at me that it never feels like it's quite enough. And it's never his fault. It's nothing he says. It's me. It's my problem.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the biggest fights that I have too is, I think a lot of times I have to remind myself that I'm not my chronic illness, because I
Yes.
think a lot of times that the illness itself would be so strong and so apparent that sometimes I may feel like I can wallow in it because, oh, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, but then I have to remember, like, I can I can still contribute in ways that are still meaningful.
Yes.
Like if my wife needs me to sit down with her I can do that. If she needs me to, cook, I can cook, right? If she needs me to do that, I can still do that too. I try not to let the illness define me,
Yeah.
so that's been the curving point to not allow me to feel that guilt as much, because I try not to wallow in it. But then I feel like sometimes I don't like to sit down. I always try to do something. I always try to, keep my hands busy, but sometimes I do need a rest as well.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of what's hard for us too, because my husband, like, he's a super athlete. Like, he loves being outside, hiking. He's always working out. So, like,
Nice.
a big part of our relationship was like we'd go to the gym together, or on a beautiful fall day like today, we'd go out for a hike with the dog, or like we were always doing something. But now with my condition, like, he has to do those things either with someone else or alone, and
Mm,
I can't participate. And that is sad because, like, that was a part of our relationship. That was something we really enjoyed. And now, I mean, there's plenty of other things we can do, of course, but
absolutely.
it just stinks because we were adventurous people who like to go do things. And now even the idea of, like, oh man, the next time we do plan a trip and I have to get on a plane, what kind of recovery time do I have to plan for? How are we going to get the wheelchair access? Da 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 da. There's a million other steps that you have to think about now.
Right. That fatigue is no joke, man. Trust me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
so going back into the chronic illness that you have, I know it's debilitating. I know it's often invisible. What is the most exhausting part of having to constantly validate yourself?
I think it's just like it's the invisible part, right? Like some days it's visible in the sense of I have a cane. It's visible in the sense that some days I need a wheelchair. It's visible in some sense like some days I am not getting out of bed. But other days, like, if you could see me right now, like I've got makeup on, my hair is fixed, like I don't look like a sick person. So I think that's difficult because people will assume, look at a book by its cover kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
also with, people who have known me, they saw what I used to be capable of, and they're sort of like, oh, well, you can do this, right? My brother-in-law asked me the other day if I could go kayaking, and I was like, "What? Like you're crazy, right?" He's like, "Yeah, but it's a sit-down activity." I'm like, "Honey, I'm in pain just sitting here looking at you. Are you what?" And he literally doesn't get it. He's like, "Really? Wow, what do you mean? Like what kind of pain?" And like I tell them, and even when I tell them, they're almost like, "Huh?" And it's like they don't believe me. Either they don't
Oh my
believe me
God.
or they really can't so they're like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I don't even know what to say right now. Like,
You know, I have a member in my family. I'm not even gonna name drop because I don't know if they're listening. But every time I mention like yeah, I have to go for another renal stent exchange, or they're planning to reconstruct my ureter. Like, oh, they're still doing that kidney stuff. I thought they were done with that. It's like,
yes,
what?
yes. Like, okay, so I started suspecting POTS back in June, right? And then I got a diagnosis just a couple weeks ago, which really in that time frame is amazing. And I've been trying to explain this to my in-laws, where they're like, "Oh wow, weren't you suspecting that back in June? They just figured that out." And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
right? And then they're like, "Oh, you have more like I thought they figured it out. Why do you have more testing?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, guys, like you just don't get it, And it's frustrating because even if you explain yourself, it's almost like like I said, it almost feels like they don't believe you, and so you feel
Yeah.
foolish.
And it's that ignorance. It's that this is lifelong. Chronic illness is lifelong. It doesn't just stop.
Yes.
Once it's chronic, it's forever. Till
Well, and that's why I try to explain to them too. I'm like, okay, when you have a chronic illness the way I have had for this long, and for them to go this long without even being able to pinpoint what it is, what makes you think they're going to just be able to poof magically cure it in a few months? Are you insane? Like
exactly.
I'm chronically ill. I have been, and I still will be.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. What's funny is I didn't even know malignant hypertension was a chronic illness. I didn't even know
Right.
that until they gave me CKD, and I was like, oh, okay, well, give me two now. So it's been, yeah, that I hear that 10,000%.
Yeah.
Since we're on the topic of family, though, we're gonna we're gonna sit here for a little bit. All right. I want if you don't mind, share. Can you share the hardest conversation you had with a family member or friend when you were trying to make them understand your new reality?
Oh boy.
Oh, I'm buckling my seatbelt already, bro.
The hardest one. The hardest one. I mean, there's been quite a few hard conversations. I think the one that was hardest for me though was it was actually recently with my husband. He was
Hmm.
packing up the car because we were getting ready to head to his in-laws because that's where we've been staying when I have medical care.
Okay.
So anyway, he was packing up the car and I was like, "Okay, well you got my wheelchair, right?" And he goes, "Well, no, there's no room." And I was like, "Bro, I need my wheelchair. Like that's priority. Like I understand that never used to be a thing you have to think about, and I understand the room in the car thing, but like you got to make it work. Like you don't get to decide which mobility aids I need. I decide that. And
Mm.
so like it was hard in the sense of like I know he didn't mean anything by it, but at the same time it was kind of like, dude, do I really have to explain that to you? Like don't decide for me that, oh, for the next 2 weeks I'm going to be fine with just a cane. That's not up to you. That's not even up to me. It's up to my
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know
Oh, that's a struggle.
That was
Um,
hard. That was hard. But I mean, it's again, it's a learning curve, right? And when it's not something you're used to, I mean, you just you just forget.
Yeah, and I think, even with the topic of like the caregivers, uh, even in our moments where that happens, I definitely agree. Like, giving the grace to those caregivers because they're looking at it like, well, I think this will work for you, but that communication piece is so essential.
It
Like, hey,
really
what
is,
what
yeah.
exactly do you need? And and give them grace too. Like, shout out to the husband for sure, or hubby rather. It's just like, those conversations with the patients are super necessary, and just to sit down and be like, all right, what exactly do you need? Because, as a caregiver, I'm trying to give you exactly what you need so that you can thrive or feel better. So, I appreciate that conversation, and I think that's a necessary conversation for sure, because it kind of deepens the connection, if you will. So for the listeners, who may be newly disabled, and feel like, they're a burden, that's a big one that we've always harped on. Um, Feeling like we're a burden. We don't want to ask for help. We don't want to X, Y, Z. What is the raw emotion process you went through to shift your perspective from not being a burden?
I think it was just really understanding that, like, at the end of the day, I'm stuck in my own body, and like, no one's going to know what's going on or what I need unless I tell them, and a lot of it too has been about, healing that inner child that never was really taken care of. So I
Yeah.
actually have a picture on my wall. I'm looking at it right now of me. I'm probably like 1, 2 years old, looking adorable, and it says, take care of her. And that's really where my drive comes from. I remember that little girl who was neglected, and I say, nope, I'm going to do everything in my power to give her the world, and that's
Wow.
my mission.
That is powerful.
Thank you.
I I almost want to dive into like your support system as far as the medical side of things, your healthcare team. How instrumental have they been as far as validation and supporting you throughout the process?
Huge. I mean, like I said, with that previous doctor I saw who was completely neglectful, that was very hard and scary for me. And I
Mhm.
made the decision to get help elsewhere. And the my new doctor, um, she was just validating from day one. And, she was looking at my blood work and like, no, something is wrong here. I don't know what your other doctor's talking about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. And she has been so supportive in the sense of like when I come to her with my symptoms, she's like, okay, I hear this. Let's give you this to help you, but let's still try to figure out why it's happening, and that is
Right.
so important to me because there's so many doctors who will just throw medicine at you and be like, well, you're feeling better, right? Okay, then go away. And it's like, no, I need to know why this is going on. I need to know why. So she's been great in that sense. And then the cardiologist that I have who just diagnosed me with POTS, he's been great too. It's just nice to finally feel seen and to feel like, oh wow, these symptoms I've been having for years, like those were actually really real. Oh wow, if I did not sit down at that time, I felt X, Y, and Z, I would have fully fainted. Oh wow,
Yeah.
it's eye opening.
I definitely have to agree with you there because I know with these new symptoms that I probably feel, I don't want to seem like I'm a hypochondriac, right? But
Right.
there are things that I just never felt before, and so now I'm feeling it. Like whether it's the feeling faint or lightheaded, or whether it's just me feeling the ultra fatigue or the pain on the right side of my ribs, and I know that's where my kidney is.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that I can go to someone that can like reassure me that everything is stable, everything is okay, or whatnot. Because I know the mind can definitely play real cruel games on you.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but then at the same time, it's always good that they can assess what the mind is trying to play and tell you exactly what it is at the same time. So shout out to all the good doctors out there because
Yes.
there's some ones out there that are really questionable, man.
Yes.
I'm not even going to go further there. But you, as an individual, okay, I know there are some other things that you're into. I know you're an advocate on social media. You advocate for chronic illness as well, and you also do art. how did you get into art? How did that happen for you?
I've been an artist my whole life. I mean, from the moment I could hold a pencil, I've been doodling.
Hmm.
There's bins and bins and bins of my artwork over the years. And so it's always just been a hobby of mine, nothing really serious. And over the years, like I would paint pictures as gifts for people. And so actually, like for almost 2 years, I feel like I didn't do any art at all. I was like so focused on career and focused on mental health and things like that, that like I just wasn't feeling creative. I wasn't doing anything. And then after I got sick this time, I was like, well, I got time on my hands anyway. And
Yeah, I hear
so
that.
so I started painting again. And then, it was a few years ago, I did a portrait of my mother-in-law's dog. And I was like,
Hmm.
I really feel like people would like this. So I just started painting pets and it's taken off, which is
Wow,
great.
awesome. Awesome. Now,
Yeah.
just going back to tying that art piece, and you mentioned having the free time now. I know you were on this professional route. Things changed, and now you picked up the pen and color pencils and all the pastels and all that jazz. You picked those up. Um, what was that like, or rather, I would say, when you were diagnosed, what was the being made new, the rebranding of you? Um, what was that like? How did that feel? Just to be able to, I guess, walk in the sense of the new you.
Honestly, I feel like I'm finally discovering the real me. This is the first time that I've done something that I truly love, brings me joy every time I do it, something that continuously fills my cup, whereas I've had careers where I'm drained.
Hmm.
So I mean, I guess that's really the shift for me, is just focusing on, okay, what really brings me joy, what is a natural talent I have, versus trying to fit myself into a box of
Right.
a career that really doesn't suit my mind or body.
That is the main struggle that a lot of folks go through is, now that I've been diagnosed, now what? I
Right,
was CEO of Blockbuster. I have this disease now. Now what?
right,
I
right,
own the grocery store. I can't stand up. Now what?
right.
Um, and I think it's safe to say that everyone should who is newly diagnosed, they should always know that there's never a period, as long as they have breath in their lungs. There's always the next chapter, if you will. So I think even for me, like coming out the classroom, um, I didn't know I liked to talk this much. I mean I guess there was an inkling, like I was a teacher, right? I talked a lot, but then the possibility of sharing information with others, right? that's
Yeah.
essentially that's essentially what I did. We're literally in a classroom now for people listening.
Oh, yeah.
And so I take every experience that I've had from the professional sense, and I kind of navigate it here, to where I can sit down with someone like you and just be someone new, like outside of the physical. Like, I didn't have a beard before, and a beard came in because I was in a hospital and couldn't shave, and it just stuck, right? And everything else that kind of came along with it. I kind of let it rebrand me into the new person, that I would say I am, because the experience that I have, I could never unsee it.
I
You know.
love that you said that, because like one of the first things I did after I became disabled, because like I used to have all purple hair. I used to dye my hair all sorts of fun colors, right? And then I
Hmm.
went a long time where I just left it alone and wasn't doing anything. After I became disabled, I was like, you know what? I need to do something. So I have a purple strip in the front of my hair. I won't do all of it, but I do have a purple strip. And I'm like, you know what? She's coming back. She's coming back.
Yeah, it's that edginess. It's like, what? I just fought something, like I'm still fighting it, and I'm gonna show like a battle scar, if you will. It's like, here I am.
Yeah.
One thing I always say, man, we have a chronic illness that, is debilitating, but at the same time, it makes us invincible. You
Yes.
know,
Oh,
it
yeah.
it it definitely makes us stronger, because now we face the most scariest parts. Like, what else can life throw at us? You know?
Right, and you have no choice but to be resilient. You don't have a choice. You're thrown into it and you get through it. So it's like, oh, all right. Well, I guess that wasn't so bad.
Man, you know, it might have been, you know, painful, but you know, it wasn't that bad because I made it. You know, I
Right,
made it.
right.
What doesn't kill me make me stronger. So going to your social medias now. You're quite the actor. You're quite the comedian. All right,
Thank you.
peeps. At the end, you're gonna get her social handles, man. Go show her some love. Take a look at her videos. There's one, you know, like if you're happy and you've been to the doctor's appointment and they didn't start, you know, clap your
I
hands and
love
you're like,
that one.
you start smashing the screen, and I'm just like, oh, she's spazzing, right? I love that because it echoes a truth that a lot of patients might go through, especially,
Yes.
you know, I know we said it a lot, but I don't care. The crappy doctors, we go through that, you know, where we go and we get you know, ill diagnosed, if you will. We don't get the right information that we need at the time from the doctors.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, so when you share your story or when you share those moments, you know, on the educational and validational tip, what is the one raw, and I stress raw, you know, unfiltered truth that you wish everyone knew about chronic illness? I know that punched you in the stomach. I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry.
Okay, the rawest thing is honestly like you can do everything right. You can do all the things right for your body. You can eat the right things. You can see the quote unquote right doctor because he's got such and such letters after his name. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Mm,
matter. You're not in charge. You never will be. You're locked in for a ride, and you know you just manage the best you can. And yes, keep pushing, keep looking because there are good people, there are good doctors out there, but it's going to take a lot of work. And
mhm,
uh, you know, I think over the years, doctors have been held in such high esteem, you know, because they go to school for so long and they're so smart and they save lives and la la la. Well, you know, at the end of the day, some people are jerks. And so that means some doctors are jerks. Okay. It doesn't matter if they went to school or not. A jerk is a jerk. And some people don't care. So, like, you need to do what's right for you. If anything feels icky or if a doctor sets you off in any way and you're like, that didn't feel right, move on.
move on.
I can't stress that enough. Like, you got to do what's right for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of, again, comfortability kills. You know,
Yeah, it does.
yeah,
Yep.
I'll share this here, and I've probably shared it in other episodes as well. But you know, at a certain point, I lived in a certain city in the Central Florida area, and I was seeing a doctor, and he was giving me blood pressure meds, you know, and I was just taking them, you know, not asking questions, not asking. I mean, of course, he said, lose some weight, you know, take the blood pressure meds, and I at some point I was taking 5 blood pressure meds,
Oof.
and I felt the adverse effects. I was getting nasty migraine headaches and everything. You know, now that I have a nephrologist now, I'm on maybe 2 blood pressure meds and some water pills for, you know, to remove the excess water from my body with my kidney situation. And that was never told to me that my blood pressure could be managed by a nephrologist. You know, I
Mm,
just thought primary care, primary care, primary care. And literally I feel like a lot of primary care doctors, they won't give the referral. And
no.
I might be going a little ahead of myself here, you know, not bashing any, you know, doctors or anything like that. But I'm just saying there's a lot of folks who choose or rather don't know the proper resources to give certain patients for whatever reason that is. But yeah, like you said, man, there's some doctors who can be jerks. You know,
And do
and
your research, just like kind
absolutely.
of piggybacking off what you just said, like do the research. I know doctors are like, don't go on Google and Google your. Yes, do it. Go on Google, Google your symptoms. Ask, hey, when I have this diagnosis, what kind of doctor should I see? Ask questions because
Yeah,
most of the time, your PCP, God bless them, but they're probably not going to know. They're
right,
not.
right.
I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I've gone to doctors and I tell them about Ehlers-Danlos, and they're like, "Can you spell that for me?" And I'm like, "You're joking, right?"
What?
Oh,
What?
I swear to goodness gracious.
You have the letters in front of your name.
I
My
know. Can you
goodness.
spell that for me? I've never heard of that before. You've never heard of that before. Well, that's frightening. Why are you wearing that white coat? Can you go away?
Ah, you know, and I guess we can be fair. That's probably not their
I
expertise.
know.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Not to completely
but
throw
this
them
is
under the
a
bus.
problem though.
Right.
This is a problem because we 100% are having a crisis. This is an epidemic.
Absolutely.
There are so many people, especially young women, who are sick and we don't have answers as to why.
Absolutely.
Something has to shift. And this is why I am so focused on talking about it and doing what I do, because this isn't about me, look at me, pity me, la la la. No, I don't want that. This is about everyone else who has gone through the same thing, and hopefully you skip over the BS because I'm going to teach you what the BS is. All right,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm going to help you because no one was willing to help me. I had to learn the hard way. I'm not going to leave that to other people. If people come to me and ask for help or questions or advice, I got you
Yeah,
anytime.
absolutely. And and oh man, I love that fire because I'll be honest, I think I'm the only one in my circle of friends that probably have CKD. Let me know if I'm wrong, guys, but I think I'm the only one. And so for me, I know what started it, and it was high blood pressure. Mind you, I'm Caribbean. Okay, like we love our spices. Our lifestyle is very tough, hardcore. We don't smile as much. I mean, we smile, we crack jokes, but it's not too friendly, right? So a lot of that we kind of internalize a lot of things, right? And so what I'm thinking is, okay, if the way that we live, if our mindsets kind of cultivate this sense of high blood pressureness or this stress induced, environment piece, we might want to be careful with the high blood pressure piece. And because I had to navigate that before I got to my diagnosis, I'm always talking about like, hey, yo, peeps, make sure you do a lot of self care. Make sure you do stress
Mhm.
management is super important.
Mhm.
Take walks, listen to music, do things for you that'll help to alleviate any stresses because you're going out into the world, you're working hard, you're dealing with certain personality types, and you're carrying that stress back home. And now you're probably like frustrated out the wazoo, and here you are building on this hypertension, and it's not just what you face out there. It's probably some of the stuff that we probably put into our bodies too, and it's not to be super look at the labels, guys, but I think that's a start.
Mm.
If we want to be mindful with how our overall health is impacted by what we eat and what we consume.
Mhm.
I think what we consume in general, whether it's from other people's voices, negativity, what we put in our bodies, maybe some shocking news that we see on the news as well, anything that we consume through our ears, mouth, nose,
Yes.
is can be detrimental to our body. So it's
It's
always,
energy. You're absorbing
yeah,
energy.
yeah, man. And so I'm big on like, hey, my starting point was hypertension. Peeps, make sure you go to a therapist. Make
Yeah.
sure you get checked up. Make sure you do stress management. I think for me, I had a lot of work life and work and home life imbalance. I was working harder than I was at home, and I was just doing too much. And so it caught up with me. It caught up with me in a way that I didn't want it to. In which it changed my life forever. But I'm thankful it happened because now I can be a voice to that regard. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Oh man, yo, I'm really digging this. Okay, um, yeah, you don't understand, man. This is so dope. So, I know we're at this high mountain right now. And advocacy for sure. And guys, please check out her page, man. You'll find some really funny stuff and her artwork too. You'll catch that. But let's go down. Let's go back down to some low points. Okay. Um, I know anybody with a chronic illness will tell you this is not the easiest life to live. It comes with a lot of hurt. It comes with a lot of fears, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. Um, at your absolute lowest point, I mean, we're talking like graveyard, lowest point, no pun intended, right? At your lowest point, what was the single small spark of purpose that convinced you to start sharing your story publicly? Because I know it didn't just happen, right? You didn't just come out and, yeah, I'm going to put everything on social media. But what sparked you to do that publicly?
I think it was just when I understood how misunderstood I was.
Mm,
And then that kind of clicked for me, like, if I'm feeling this misunderstood, there's a bunch of other people who are feeling misunderstood too. And just kind of removing the stigma around things about, I mean, about chronic illness, but especially mental health.
right.
So like that's really the motivator, is just changing the conversations and not having them be so taboo or negative.
Mm. Yeah, it's when you say you said it's like changing a conversation, being feeling misled. It's almost like the Matrix, right? You thought everything was kosher until it wasn't, and you realize, wait, this something's wrong here. There's more to this than anything.
Hmm.
And you said the biggest word that kind of triggers a lot of the stressors and the fears: stigma.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. I think I've headbutted that word so many times within these past 2 years. Um, my biggest problem with stigma is that a lot of people tend to, like you said earlier, put you in a box.
Yeah.
Um, if you're going through this illness, then you have to your illness has to look like this. If I say I have CKD and there's no cure, they think I have cerebral palsy and I'm just crippled all the time. No, that's not the case. But then when you don't look like the narrative, then they say, oh, you're faking it. Like stop that, because that's not what it is. An invisible illness is not that at all. That stigma, or even when you mention like having the mental fights. I always stress that the mental fights is tougher than the physical ones,
Oh
because
man.
you're
Yeah.
dealing with the old you and
Yep.
who you are now. And
Yep.
you're looking at both of these individuals like, well, why can't I have this one anymore? Like, right,
Yes.
you know, and
Yes.
people don't understand that piece. Could you navigate that for me? That whole internal mental fight.
Oh man, I mean it. It's hard, and there's been a lot of hard conversations around it. I mean, and this is why my husband's great because we can have these hard conversations. So, like when I first got disabled and I was really bad, where I needed assistance with everything, like I couldn't even dress myself, right? So
Hmm.
it got to the point where like I couldn't even pick out my clothes for the day. Like talk about taking away your sense of identity, you know? And so like I would tell him about it. I'd be like, babe, like obviously you're not doing anything wrong. You're helping me, but just think about that for a second. Just think about you're waking up, you're starting your day. You can't even pick what t-shirt you want to put on. Like
Right.
that's wild, you know? And I think I don't know, there's just so much humility that goes with it. Like I said, I had two people that had to help me go to the bathroom. Like, I had to have my friends help me shower. It's
And
like
that's something that you never thought in a million years you
never
would end
thought
up.
in a million years that would have to happen to me. But you know what? Any humility I had went right out the window. Like
Oh man, for me, I think the lowest point um that kind of sparked me to, even when I talk about my journey and the mental health side of things, I stress it so much because I actually this past, ironically enough, okay, and this is probably the first time I probably shared this with you before, but the first time I felt this low point. Ironically, it was in the month of September, and as you know, September is Suicide Awareness Month.
Yep.
And I had this whole posting thing set up. I was going to do this on this week and I was going to talk about that. And somewhere in the midst of me getting started in September, I hit my low point because, and I'm pretty sure there was a lot of things going on, and I just kind of internalized a lot of it, and it brought me to a really dark place. And, long story short, I myself, me, Mr. Cool Beans, ended up calling 988, which is the suicide prevention hotline.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I never thought for a second or for a million years that I would ever be calling these folks. But I had to, because I think what I was trying to do for the majority of my journey was stay positive, try to brass knuckle positivity and, speak out on, and be this, new social media, kidney health, whatever. And I had to realize I'm human real
Yeah.
fast. I realized that all this mastery of positivity won't last forever because it has batteries. And it took me there, and I called them, and for the first time I was faced with the fragility of my mind. I was faced with my pride and ego as a man.
Mm.
And I had to confront it, and I had to remember that nobody prepared me for this.
Yep.
Nobody gave me the map quest, if you will, on how to navigate this. I'm doing this every day with my family. I'm watching my wife be strong for me. I'm watching my son watch up. He growing up to see his dad navigate something that he doesn't understand yet. So a lot of that weighs, but then again, we're human, and so the mental health side, the stigmas, it's okay to seek help. It's okay.
Yep. Yep.
you know
I mean,
oh.
I thank you for sharing that. I mean, I will share. I've been in the psych ward two times in my life,
Mm.
and it saved me. Both times. I'm so thankful that I went. But yeah, I mean, and I think really what I think the biggest motivator for me, honestly, is going back to the crappy doctors, right? Because there
Yeah,
are so many people who don't know better. And so I want to share my experience so people know that, like, hey, you can speak up for yourself. Like, I mean, with my doctor, I filed a formal complaint to the Board of Medicine in the state of New Hampshire, and they're going to be investigating it. So, like,
awesome.
yes. So, like, what does that mean for me? I don't know. Probably a lot of stress, but what does that mean for the next person? Hopefully, it means a better experience than what I had.
Yeah, because nobody else should go through what you went through,
No one
especially.
should ever experience this. My life was ripped away from me. I had choices that I had to make completely out of my control because I was neglected medically, and that should never happen to anybody ever.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I know it takes a lot of courage. Definitely to come on a platform like this and then talk about something like even for me. I don't think a lot of my friends know this. So there you have it, guys. We talked about that. Okay. My goodness. And I'm thankful that you're out here also as an advocate sharing your story publicly as well. We need that. We need more voices like that. And I know not everybody's cut to do that. I'm just be honest.
No, it's true. It's true.
A lot of folks, they just want to, be in the back of the class, and that's okay. I'm not gavel banging anybody. They're comfortable enough to just be in the back of the class, ask questions and just kind of navigate it by themselves. But the thing is to not navigate it by yourself, and if you have the courage enough to talk about what you're going through, more voices and advocacy is definitely needed. We don't have enough advocates out there, especially
No.
when you consider the amount of chronic illnesses that are out here. It's like too much to keep up with.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I thank you so much for being bold and having this fire. Okay, I know that your story makes sense because this fire that you got is blazing. All right, it's hot. All right, so I appreciate that. We need that vigor. We need that gusto out there, man.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Thank you.
and I guess that ties back to your social media. Pretty rude, JJ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take us through that. Like, was that the new identity, or is that's just who you are? And you got that Northeast mentality.
So,
You know what I mean?
okay, there is a reason for the name. So, okay, JJ's always kind of been a nickname for me over the years. It's always been kind of like an online persona for me. Like, I'll just be like, "Hey, my
Mhm.
nickname's JJ," whatever.
Right.
Um, the Pretty Rude came in.
Here we go. Here we go.
So the Pretty Rude came in a while ago, and I think it was as simple as, like, I want to do pretty art that says mean things. So, like, I'm gonna curse. So I had one that was like pretty flowers and it said eat. Like, just for funsies, nothing crazy. But anyway, as I got sick, I loved the fact that my handle was already Pretty Rude JJ, because quite frankly, being chronically ill is pretty rude. Okay.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, over the years, I have become less polite with doctors, and I am much more rude because I am much more direct and I get what I want.
Hmm.
Because when I was too nice before, I'd get the runaround. And unfortunately, that's a bitter truth too. Sometimes you got to be nasty to get what you want in this world. I hate that reality, but it is reality, is proven
That's true.
true time and time again. So anyway, I can be pretty rude sometimes. I'm like a Sour Patch Kid. I am the nicest person but if you cross me, you better watch out.
Ooh.
Like, it's true. It's true. So, I mean, if you treat me right, I'm going to treat you right. But if you
Yeah.
do anything to cross me, or if you're doing something that is not okay, like what this doctor did, I'm going to call you out.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
warned. I'm going to call you out.
And I think that's fair, right? Nobody likes to be, double crossed or be talked down to or feel like they're unvalidated in any sense of the way. I think that's on a general consensus here. Nobody wants to feel like they're not appreciated or cared for or anything like that. Everyone wants to make sure or know that everyone else has their best interest in mind, and we should also give the same. But when someone who is, trying to take care of us like a doctor or something like that is not taking initiative to have our best interest in their minds whenever they're seeing us, I think it's fair. I think it's fair game at that point because
It
you're
should
you're
not be a bonus that your doctor's compassionate. Okay, that
yeah,
should not be a bonus. That should be a given.
it's a given. Should be a given. I might, we might have to circle back with another episode to talk about this doctor business. Okay.
Let's schedule again. Let's schedule again. I am ready to go.
We might have to chop this up again with the doctors. But yes. So that's where pretty rude JJ. All right. So guys, you hear it then. If you ever DM her about some artwork and then you try to act all snippy in the DMs, just know what's coming.
Just
Right.
know what's going to happen. So, as I was saying before, I do the pet portraits, but on the Pretty Rude JJ page, you're going to find all sorts of stuff. I do mostly watercolor, but I make things into stickers. I have prints, I have greeting cards, and everything I have is supposed to be kind of like it has some kind of relation to mental health or chronic illness. So, for example,
Nice.
I have a spicy brain sticker. It's a picture of a brain with a bunch of chili peppers in it to represent neurodiversity or neurodivergence, I mean, and it says, why is it spicy? Like that's funny. But
Yeah.
to people who truly understand what that means, like that to me is self-expression. I love stickers, and I love stickers that have a meaning behind it, because to me that's so badass.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it also hits the educational piece across, right? So anybody who walks by, they might question it. That's a
Yeah. Oh,
conversation
what does
starter.
that mean? Yeah. Because like a
Mhm.
lot of my stuff is spoony related, right? So people are like, oh, what's spoony? And then I tell them what it means. And yeah, it's cool.
Oh, that's what's up, man. You know, JJ, or can I call you JJ? I might
Yeah,
change
of
this one.
course.
That's right. I'm gonna for the podcast. We'll just call you Jesse, and I'll call you JJ on other on social media.
It's all good. It's all good.
But just winding down to our last question, man. If you could leave one final thought to the people listening, about your, in regards to your journey, your experiences, who you are now, what's one final message that you would leave for the people to consider when it comes to your story and chronic illness?
I think my biggest message is, do not allow your past to define you. Do not allow your circumstances to define you. Only you define you, and you figure that out by being true to yourself.
Wow, there you have it,
Boom.
man. Yo,
Mic
JJ.
drop.
JJ, pretty rude JJ, man. This has been such an honest and important conversation, man. I just want to say a huge thank you, for walking us through your journey, and for so openly sharing the reality, of seeking validation and the purpose, after a major life change. Like we never expected to walk down this route of chronic illness, but here we are. I know
Yep.
it takes so much strength, to turn struggle into education. So I thank you just for what you're doing on social media. I thank you for how you're progressing in life, and just growing into the new you.
Thank
For
you.
yeah, man, for our listeners who are moved by your story and want to follow you and connect with your work, and connect with you on a friendship level. Where's the best places for them to find you online?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm very active on Instagram. So at Pretty Rude JJ. Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. Actually, that is where you'll find me.
Awesome, awesome, perfect. So we'll have all of those links available in the show notes for everyone. And with that, we want to thank you again. We want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in to this powerful conversation with Jesse. We hope you found the validation and education you needed today. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might need to hear Jesse's story. We'll be back next week with another one. All right, until then, take care of yourself. Mr. Cool Beans, Pretty Rude JJ, we're out.
Thank you.